Ever think a piping hot cup of tea could spark one of the wildest revolutions in human history? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why that everyday drink caused colonial tempers to boil and sparked the birth of a brand new nation. From sneaky protests to full-blown warfare, it all circles back to tea. Let's dive right in. Long before Uncle Sam donned his top hat, when the New World was a treasure trove and the biggest powers in Europe wanted their own piece, it all started when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean in 1492 and discovered lands rich in gold and resources. Conflicts soon spread as various European countries scrambled for control, clashing with each other and with native peoples. Eventually, England wrestled a good chunk of land and gave birth to 13 bustling colonies. But peace? Oh ho, that was never an option. A major global fight called the French and Indian War pitted British colonists and their native allies against French forces and their native allies. Britain won, but the war left a hefty debt, and somebody had to pay for it. The British turned to the colonies. "You folks were under our protection. Pay up!" They introduced frustrating taxes like the Sugar Act and the dreaded Stamp Act, slapping fees on just about every scrap of paper or sugary drop. The colonists, who had no say in Parliament, cried foul. "Taxation without representation." They protested, boycotted British goods, and stirred up resentment against their mother country. When taxes were occasionally scrapped, Parliament tried new ones, especially on tea. Tempers simmered and boiled over in Boston. British troops arrived, tensions soared, and one snowy day turned bloody in the Boston Massacre, leaving colonists outraged. Yet the boiling point came with the Boston Tea Party, when patriots snuck aboard a ship and dumped a fortune of British tea into the harbor. Britain retaliated, punishing Boston with harsh measures, dissolving local assemblies, and turning Massachusetts into a tight military zone. Worried they'd be next, the other colonies rallied. Prominent figures like George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson gathered for the Continental Congress, sending petitions to the king to ease off the taxes. The king refused. Militia leaders set their Minutemen on high alert, and soon the sparks turned into real shots fired at Lexington and Concord. The start of open rebellion. Once the shooting began, there was no turning back. The colonies found themselves battling the most powerful empire on Earth. Washington took command, colonial forces stood their ground at Bunker Hill, and despite losing that hill, they showed they could inflict serious damage. Then, a bold pamphlet called Common Sense fired up the idea of total independence. With the ringing words of the Declaration of Independence, the colonists declared themselves a new nation. Though the British initially beat Washington around New York, he snagged a brilliant comeback by crossing the icy Delaware River on Christmas, surprising enemy Hessians at Trenton. Over time, French allies, plus the Spanish and the Dutch, stepped in to weaken Britain further. After years of brutal fighting, the culminating siege at Yorktown forced a large British surrender and broke Parliament's will to continue the war. That final victory made Great Britain recognize the United States as an independent country. The nation was born with grand dreams of liberty, though it had stumbled along the way and face many challenges yet to come. Still, that epic struggle for rights and representation changed the course of history forever. From a handful of taxed-up colonies to a full-blown revolution, the Americans fought for their voices to be heard. Remember this: a single spark, like a tax here, a protest there, can grow into something mighty. That's the legacy of the American Revolution. If you enjoyed this little trip through time, be sure to subscribe and stick around for more tales from history's dusty old shelves.